What it is, y'all, it is your old boy Pilk, and I'm coming back at you today with more Danmachi. Now, today we're going to be talking about Heroic Trial. We haven't talked about this Heroic Trial yet, and I feel like this is going to be running out here, well, I believe, let's see what the date is. I believe next week. No, actually 2 weeks from now, so you got some time to complete this. But I'm going to always talk about the EX missions. But before I do that, I'm going to talk about what bond to get, because normally I would tell you to get the Adventurer Set Hestia bond. And while that's a great bond, at level 60, she does critical penetration and counter rate up 8%, which is nice, going up to 10% when she's max limit broken. But the big thing is she also does MP regeneration. At the end of every turn, she's going to add 60 MP back to your MP pool for the unit that she's actually tied to. Not across the board, but to that singular adventure that she's tied to, she's going to add 60 MP. That goes up to 80 when max limit broken. A very, very, very good unit. That said, I really feel like that Lefiya bond's a really good option too. Now, Elfie, don't worry about it. Elfie's kind of garbage. But Lefiya is such a good unit. I'm going to use her as my main DPS. Now, I know Ryu's right here. But remember, Ryu isn't going to be able to SA or anything like that. So I feel like Lefiya is a slightly better DPS. I'm going to use Lefiya as my main DPS in this event to try to take it on. Now, I will say the main thing you want to do here first right out of the gate is debuff like crazy. Haruhime's 40% debuff, absolutely killer for this. You're going to need something along those lines. You will also notice in my team build that I have the Hestia, who is tied to Haruhime, because that extra 20%, because mine is max limit broken, is going to come in clutch. If you only have the, a weaker one, you should be okay here. The main thing I would tell you to do is make sure you have somebody on your team that removes magic buffs, or at least debuffs their water damage a little more, does some kind of debuff or extra defensive buff, because they're going to start hitting hard. Now, I'll show you right where you can build that in here in just a moment. But first, I'm going to do a 40% debuff on them. I'm going to buff our SA gauge, and I really feel like that's the right move because the more damage they can put out, the better. Now, both Lefiya and Reveria, they're actually going to be sitting here buffing just their general damage. Haruhime is going to move on to Yosuga on turn two, just to make sure that we get a little bit of healing and we're able to actually extend our buffs. Now, I am using Filvis here to debuff physical and magic. If I'm honest, this is that turn I was talking about where you could, instead of her, use somebody that does a big defensive buff. And the reason I say that is because if your units are not max limit broken, you could probably take this on with +3s. I wouldn't try +2s unless you have really crazy good defenses. But by turn 3, especially turn 4, we're going to start taking some substantial damage because they're going to buff themselves. So if you can't remove the buffs, put somebody on this turn, sack somebody on turn 2 that can do a big defensive buff. You will thank me later for that. Now, I'm going to use this to do a debuff. That means that I can actually move on and do damage with Lefiya on turn 2. And I can go ahead and continue the buff with Reveria, because remember, Reveria basically has a 2-turn buff. It's just the downside to Reveria. Now, boom. You'll notice that the MP is starting to fall off, and you'll notice that Reveria took a big early hit there, which didn't feel very good. I'm going to go ahead and do the 45% debuff on Lefiya, just to get a little bit of extra in there. And then with Lefiya, I'm going to go ahead and continue basically attacking with her. I'm going to do her SA to try to wear her down a little more. Now, there is some argument to maybe using Haruhime's buff, but I really feel like the 50% water resistance debuff is going to do a bit more, especially when I bring Ryu in. Now, this is all basically designed to kill Lefiya just that much faster. Actually, yeah. I'm going to do that because I feel like that's going to do the job. That does mean Reveria is going to go ahead and do Piercing Chill on this turn. And I take this back. Instead of the extra 5%, I'm going to go ahead and do reuse buff, because I think even with the amount of damage we're going to take, I suspect that on turn 4, I think we're going to wipe out Lefiya. Now, Lefiya, her main resistance is to thunder units. So if you have single target thunders, you could use that. She is, sorry, I say resistant, but she is deficient to thunder units roughly about 20%. I mean, it is 20%. So if you have single target thunder, you're in a great shape there. The nice part is here also, their agility is fairly low, so Haruhime is going to be able to get her her heal out, hopefully before Lefiya does too much more damage. Now notice how low her health is. This means that I'm going to need to do all my big attacks. Normally on turn 4, I would rebuff Riveria's extra damage, but with as weak as Lefiya, or sorry, as weak as Elfie is, I'm not going to need it. So either way, we're going to look at maybe a turn 5, but most assuredly a turn 6 kill on Elfie. Now, Lefiya, on the other hand, we got to kill her fast, because at this turn, now you can see she's going to start producing damage. She could actually hurt somebody very badly. Now, this is all because I went with the early debuff rather than going the defensive route. If you go the defensive route, you're going to be about a turn further out than I am right now. So, like, you're going to be doing this kind of damage on turn 6 instead of turn 5, or turn 5 instead of turn 4. But you're fine. You just want to make sure that you're able to survive this. And the main thing to remember is that they're going to hit very, very, very hard. So if you don't have maximum broken units, focus on your defenses first and then come in. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do everybody's big attacks here. And remember, the main thing I'm kind of giving up with Riveria is that now after this, I'm going to have to buff her double attack if I wanted. But I feel like with as much damage as units are going to produce, I'm not going to need it. Once again, Lefiya naturally is resistant 20% to thunder. She was neutral across the board for both wind and water, and she was neutral to both physical and magic. Same over here, except she was already resistant to... I'm sorry, not resistant, but deficient to water, and we've debuffed her even further, so we're good on that front. Both are basically down 60%. Elfie will fall even more if we can hit her with another SA, because remember, Lefiya just got hit with a 50% SA, a 50% water resistance SA, well, decrease in water resistance SA, whereas Elfie just doesn't have that extra 20%. If she did, she'd be like croaking right immediately, but she just doesn't have that. So if you have thunder, you could do this, but either way, I would just say make sure you get rid of Lefiya as quick as humanly possible. All right, so once again, I am going to go ahead and do everybody's big attack, even though I'm giving up the secondary attack with Riveria. We got that heal. Haruhime, I need you to counter heal, girl. She has not wanted a counter heal tonight. I don't know what she's doing. I really don't know why she's not counter healing. Anyway, we've got everything buffed out far enough. Let's just go ahead and target Elfie and get this done. Riveria might croak. This is probably not going to result in an S-clear. Well, actually it will. Well, no, it's not, because Haruhime died. I can go back and run this one more time. It just means that on turn 3, I'm going to have to buff the counter rate with Haruhime, which, because for some reason she didn't feel like doing her counter buff or her counter heal. It's a thing. But either way, turn 6, we're done here. That was just an RNG issue. So let's go in here one more time and do this and buff that counter rate, and hopefully now Haruhime will behave herself. Alright, so once again, we got to come out of the gate with a debuff and all this good stuff. So hopefully you kind of get the gist of how this works now. The main thing to remember is you got to take out Lefiya early. All that damage Lefiya is going to produce is substantial and extremely painful. I'm going to go ahead and do this on this turn, because everybody should be good. I don't think any of our buffs or debuffs are going to run out anytime soon. Nah, so I'm going to wait. I'm going to do it on turn 3. I'm going to do it on turn 3. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get everything going on here. So hopefully you understand now that, yes, Lefiya is a credible threat, and frankly, she's a really good unit all around. You see how hard she was hitting and how much damage she was doing, more or less, to herself. So let's see, make sure that's for 2 turns. So we can do Sheikah this turn, but we basically got to make sure we're doing Yosuga next turn. And yeah, let's go. Only reason that I wouldn't have gotten the S clear on that one is just because Haruhime, sorry, it's late. Haruhime didn't do her counter heal. If she'd done her counter heal, we'd be in much better shape. But she had a chance to do it, and she opted not to. Not a whole heck of a lot I can do about that. That, on the other hand, is just frustrating. I feel like, you know, I'm going to back out here. As you can see, we can do this. But I'm going to go ahead and build this real quick with a defensive unit and show you guys probably how you would maybe want to handle this situation. Let's go ahead and throw... I don't know. I'm just going to throw the Winter Haruhime on here because she's the first one I can think of off the top of my head. I haven't used her in a really long time, and it'd be nice to just give her a little bit of shine. I'm not going to give her any weapon. I'm just going to go ahead and give her the swap anklet so she can come in and do her defensive maneuver. Now, there's a lot of different defensive units you could put there, but honestly, it really doesn't matter a whole heck of a lot. Now, the only thing to bear in mind is, after I do this, because Lefiya is single target, you will need to do Lefiya's debuff then to Elfie when we go to fight her. So that is the one thing you have to be very cautious of here. So we're going to debuff with Haruhime, buff the SA gauge, and do our general buff stack. This is going to take an extra turn because of this. I promise you, it's just RNG failures. You could do this without doing this if you have a maximum broken team. It's just RNG is not in the mood tonight. And that's sometimes how things go. So this physical and magic resistance buff for all allies is going to help it keep everyone alive. It unfortunately will not affect Ryu, but I feel confident, despite last turn, that Ryu is going to be, hopefully, fingers crossed, okay. Alright, so now we're going to do our magic and water resistance debuff. And that does mean that it is going to take us out that extra turn. Because now Lefiya, technically 2 turns. Now Lefiya is having to do that instead of Philvis doing it at the beginning of the turn, which was the preference. But we're also now not going to take the same level of damage. With the exception that Ryu will. But to be fair, I think Ryu can handle it. And with Haruhime not being able to take more damage, she could focus more on doing her counter heals on Ryu rather than having to counter heal 2 other units. So, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this. So, honestly, I probably should have skipped that. No, because we still need the magic debuff. So, I'm going to go ahead and do the SA here to Lefiya. With Lefiya, it's so weird to say, and our big attacks. Let's see what happens here. Now, there is something to be said for using Haruhime, but once again, I feel like getting the debuff out is going to kill them a little bit faster than getting like an extra 40% magic out. The debuff does seem to be a slightly more substantial, plus it is a damaging attack. So, there we go. Now Haruhime's doing her thing. She's just got a little bit less to stress about is all. Alright, so we're going to go back to Yosuga. We're going to go back to our big hits. And once again, I'm going to skip doing the double attack with Reveria because I don't feel like it's really necessary. What part of RNG just isn't in the mood? Alright, girls. Anyway, you get the idea. RNG is just not going to let this video happen the way it needs to happen. But neither here nor there. Like, I hope you see where RNG is just not going to cooperate with me and how this is actually extremely doable with little or no hassle. I'm just having a bout of poor luck, honestly, in the units kicking the bucket department. But you know what we didn't do? We didn't do Lefiya's debuff here. But that SA is going to cover it. All right. And we also don't have Riveria to do a little bit of extra damage. All right, girl. Bye, Felicia. This is taking way too long now that Riveria is dead. So, once again, I hope you understand and kind of see where the defensive side of this is so absolutely critical. My first S-Clear was even without the defensive structure, so you can go ahead and reattempt it. I'm completely out of... I did like 8 attempts at this stupid thing. The one off camera worked perfectly. Muy bien. But, or whatever the French word is. I don't know. I'm not good at languages. Omelette du fromage, girl. But that said, my initial attempts went flawlessly. Did 3 runs, no problems whatsoever. It's just, for whatever reason, and anybody that makes content will tell you this, as soon as you hit that record button, it's just, RNG is just like, nope. So, I mean, I didn't even need defenses on that. I did my debuffs. You can take my word for it or whatever, but it's not a very difficult task. This event is pretty straightforward and pretty simple. So, that's going to be the video, guys. Let me know what you thought in the comment section down below. Like, comment, share. Catch you all on the next one.